so one becomes endowed with love, bhava samanvita, and one begins to worship, bhaja. One begins to worship the divine being. So I am the source of all. Everything proceeds from me. Realizing thus, the wise ones imbued with love adore me. And then verse 9 says, Machita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha. So matchitta, me, coming from the word meaning me or I, matchitta, the mind joined with me, the mind joined with me, the mind fixed in me. So those whose minds are matchitta, those who are matchitta, those whose minds in me, madgata prana, whose prana, whose life force is fixed in me. Now here Madhusudana gives those whose organs, the eyes and ears and the sense organs and the internal organ are all fixed in me. So he is taking prana as manifestations of the prana, that is the sense organs, the organs of knowledge and the organs of action, the 5 organs of knowledge, sense organs, and the 5 organs of action. But the actual word madgata prana, those whose prana, a simple way of taking it, which is what I prefer, a direct way of taking it, is whose life force is joined to me, has gone into me. Madgata has gone into me. Madgata prana, whose life force, again, is plural, not necessarily because he's talking about pranas, but because he's talking about people, persons, whose prana, whose life force has been joined in me, who has entered into me. And so one of the things that we find, one of the beauties of bhakti yoga, it can happen in all of the yogas in different ways, but it's something that in bhakti yoga is part of the purpose of the path. That is, one joins one's prana to aspiration. Prana is the vital force, and prana is always circulating through the body and mind. It's the animating life force. What in China was called qi, or is called qi still. And so it's that which animates the mind, that which animates the body. It's that which mediates between the mind and body. In modern physiology and psychology, it's something of a mystery that they're still studying how it is that the mind and body interact. So when you take the mind as simply the brain, the physical brain, then it's not such a mystery because the brain is physical and the body is physical. So it's all nothing but physical. But as many Western neuroscientists have said and written books about, the brain, physical brain, cannot explain the mind itself. It can't. There's obviously a relationship, the mind working through the brain, but the brain cannot be the mind itself. It can only be an instrument of the mind. And so then again, you get the problem. How does the mind work through a physical organ like the brain and through the brain onto the physical body? So the Vedantic answer, not in detail, but in principle, is that prana, the life force, is that which mediates between mind and body. It's that which stimulates your mind. So when you're getting tired, you find that it's more and more difficult to think and to process things. You're reading a book and you start out maybe interested in the book, but it's late at night and you start getting sleepy, and then you find that your eyes have passed over several paragraphs and you didn't absorb any of it because you were just beginning to go like this. And so it takes energy in order to think. That energy is prana. We get prana from food. So the prana being that which is the life force which animates the body and the mind, when the prana becomes harmonized through pranayama, through japa, repetition of a mantra, or through love of God, then the prana all goes in one direction and it becomes like an electric current. In fact, Swami Vivekananda said prana is very much like electricity. And so the whole of one's life force goes in a direction. So if we are Madgata prana or Krishna Gata prana or Prabhu Gata prana, our life force has entered into the divine being, then the whole of our life force goes towards God. So again, Madhusudana, it's a legitimate interpretation where he takes it as the sense organs and things. But when possible, I always like a simple, direct interpretation. And this simple, direct interpretation gives a deep spiritual meaning. That where one's prana. So when you have all heard of the awakening of the mantra, that after many years of practice, some rare souls like Ramakrishna or others also, there are various ones mentioned in history, who very quickly the mantra awakens. And but for most of us, it takes a lifetime to awaken the mantra, a lifetime of practice, and eventually it awakens. What does it mean, the awakening of the mantra? It means two things. It means that the mantra has become joined to the prana, that the prana, the vital force, is now carrying the mantra. But when that happens, the prana and consciousness become joined together also. Prana is not consciousness. Life is not consciousness. Life is the life force. Consciousness is reality itself. But our individual consciousness, when the prana becomes harmonized and flows in a harmonious way, like the magnetic field, then the consciousness becomes joined with prana, and the prana carries us forward. And so the prana joined to God, or the prana joined to the mantra, is the awakening of the mantra. And so the Madgata prana bodhyanta parasparam, and such people who are Madchitta and Madgata prana, they bodhyanta parasparam, and by teaching and awakening these ideas within others. So that is, as Ramakrishna said, the devotees are like hemp smokers, that they like to sit together and enjoy the hemp. That is, they like to sit together and talk about God. So as he would say, just as one hemp smoker meets another and they said, oh, come, sit, let's have a smoke. So lovers of God, they love to get together and talk about God. So parasparam bodhayanta, illuminating each other by their talk. And katayantascha, mam katayantascha nityam. Or nityam can be joined to tushanti and ramanti also. So mam katayantascha. And speaking about me to one another and to one and all. So a time comes when one has awakened spiritually and one has gone very deep spiritually, that one wants to talk about spiritual things. And so one delights in talking with others about spiritual things. So one delights in enlightening each other through talking and just talking about divine things also. So katayantascha mam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. They always derive satisfaction, tushanti, and ramanti, and they delight. They delight in me and they derive satisfaction in me. So nityam can go either with bodhayanta and katayantascha, or it can go with tushanti and ramanti, or it can go with all of them. It's just understood that all of these things are what one does always when one has become madchitta and madgata prana. One's mind is joined to me, one's life force is joined to me. Then one delights in mutually enlightening each other, parasparam, each other. So not delighting in going around telling everybody what God is about, but no, mutually enlightening each other and talking with each other. Parasparam. Then one is finds satisfaction and one delights in that. So those whose minds are fixed on me, those whose organs have attained me, or whose prana, as I prefer it, has been joined to me, they always enlightening each other and speaking of me derive satisfaction and rejoice. So this is the basis of various texts in other later texts than the Gita, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, and even non-dualistic texts like the Laghu Vakya Vritti, which is attributed to Shankaracharya. It's doubtful that he actually wrote it. It's probably later, but it's attributed to him, the Laghu Vakya Vritti, where it talks about Paraspara Bodhanam. Tat Kathanam, Tat Chintanam, Tat Paraspara Bodhanam. So thinking about that, talking about that, mutually illuminating each other about that. So this idea has its source here in the Gita. This is, as far as I know, the first time you find this idea expressed. A very ancient scripture, probably from 5,000 years ago or more, long before the Buddhistic period, whatever Western scholars have said. So such an ancient scripture, but you find one of the wonderful things in studying the scriptures is that you find these echoes coming down the millennia, not just centuries, but through the millennia. So then verse 10 says, Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Tesham satatayuktanam, to those who are satatayuktanam, who are always concentrated on me. Satayukta, same root as yoga, again has different meanings, but here it means joined. And so who are always joined to me, that is joined in thought. Those who are always joined in thought to me, bhajatam priti purvakam, mam is understood, me. Bhajatam priti purvakam, who are worshipping, who are always worshipping priti purvakam, with love, who have affection for me, who adore me, and therefore worship me. Dadami buddhi yogam. To such a one, I give buddhi yoga, the yoga of knowledge. I give the yoga of knowledge. And here, he doesn't mean the yoga of knowledge as contrasted with the yoga of devotion, because, of course, he's been talking about devotion here. But the yoga of knowledge, which is the knowledge of the divine being, whether in the personal or the impersonal aspect, but one who worships me always with love. To such a one, I give buddhi yoga. So, of course, it doesn't mean they worship me always, so I give them what they weren't even asking for. I give them the jnana yoga, and I deny them bhakti yoga. No, I give them the highest knowledge, the knowledge of the divine. Yena mam upayanti te, by which they attain to me. By which they attain to me. So one whose mind is given to me, one whose prana is absorbed in me, one who delights in me, who finds satisfaction in me, to such a one who is always joined to me and who worships me with love, I give the yoga of knowledge. Now Ramanuja, he defines bhakti as jnana vishesha, a special type of knowledge. He says bhakti, devotion, is a special type of knowledge. So it's not contrary to knowledge. So that's how he can say, speaking in the context of devotion to the divine being, he can say, I give the yoga of knowledge, the yoga of wisdom. So to them who are ever concentrated and who worship me with love, I grant that yoga of wisdom by which they reach me. Mam upayanti te. By which they, yena mam upayanti te, by which, yena mam upayanti te mam upayanti, they attain to me. So again, as I've said before in this chapter, and in some of the other recent chapters, that you find verses like this and the previous verse where you find the very essence of bhakti yoga expressed in a very beautiful, concise way. One of the remarkable things about Swami Vivekananda was his ability to put a world of philosophy into a short, simple statement, a short one-sentence statement, which will take 1,000 years for people to figure out all of the implications of what he said. And even then, they won't have figured out all of the implications. And so Sri Krishna is similar in his ability. And there's a simple statement a world of meaning, which for the last 5,000 or 6,000 years, the Hindu tradition is still working out. So, in verse 11, he says, Teshameva nukam partham aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnana deepena bhaswata. Tesham eva anukam partham aham ajnanajam tamaha. So this one is one of those verses where you, in Sanskrit, where you have to jump from place to place to get to the Anvaya. And then the English construction is quite different from the Sanskrit word order. So instead of jumping around all over, I'll go to the translation and come back to the phrases. So with a view to favoring them alone, Tesham eva anukam partham, with a view to favoring them alone. But actually, anukampartham, one translation, one meaning, of course he doesn't give a translation, he's writing a Sanskrit commentary. The meaning he gives is with a view to favoring them, anukampartham. But anukampa also means compassion. So out of compassion for them, with a view to compassion for them. And that it basically means the same, but compassion is easier to understand than favoring them. That sounds sort of indirect. So I prefer, for the sake of artha, for the sake of anukampa, for the sake of compassion or out of compassion for them alone, tesham, I existing as the object of their mental modification in the form of the self. Now that also does have meaning, believe it or not, but it's a very, very complex construction. And so here also I prefer a simple interpretation of the phrase, which is Atma Bhavastha. Atma Bhavasta. He's talking about himself, that I am Atma Bhavasta, in the devotee. That is, I am established in Atma Bhava, in the nature of the self. Now, he interprets it, Madhusudana, as existing as the object of their mental modification in the form of the self. So he's talking about the aspirant who is thinking of the self, and that thought is a mental modification because it is a thought. And so thinking of I being the object of their mental modification, etc. So that's a very complex way of saying, not that it's wrong, but it's a complex way of saying that I being established in the self. Here we're not talking about thoughts and so forth, but I being established in the self. Destroy the darkness born of ignorance. Nashayami atma ajnanajam tamaha. The tamaha, the darkness, which is ajnanajam, born from ignorance. The darkness born of ignorance, nashayami, I destroy. I who am established in the self. I who am in the very being of the self, the Atma Bhava. And again, Madhusudana is interpreting Atma here, as he often does, and as is legitimate in many places in the Gita. He's interpreting it as mind, Atma Bhava. But if we take it here as the self, we get a simpler meaning. So, with out of compassion for them alone, I, existing in the heart of the self, destroy the darkness born of ignorance. Jnana deepena bhaswata. Bhaswata jnana deepena. By the shining light of knowledge. So I who am the self itself, by the light of knowledge, I destroy the darkness born of their ignorance. So light is that which destroys darkness. Light is what destroys darkness. If we go into a cave that has never been explored before and has been unknown for millions of years, the darkness also has existed there for a million years. There's never any, or millions of years, no light has ever entered the cave. But when we go in, We don't have to work for millions of years to bring light to the cave. All we have to do, strike a match, and the darkness is gone. And so the divine within us, in a moment, removes the darkness of ignorance. So that's what we pray for. That's why we worship. That's why we sing bhajans. That's why we say the Gayatri of Om Bhurvavasva Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. May that luminous being illuminate our hearts, direct our hearts. But direct it how? By Jnana Deepena Bhasvata, by the shining light of knowledge. May that luminous being illuminate our hearts, which have been dark for ages, since our course of samsara began, since the course of reincarnation began. For countless incarnations, the heart has been dark. But all it takes is just one moment to remove darkness. It doesn't take countless incarnations to undo the darkness which has been there. No, because darkness is just the absence of light. So all we need is light. So we pray, we worship, we seek God, so that God brings that light of knowledge, that shining bhasvat, that shining light of knowledge to our hearts. So with a view to, or out of compassion for them alone, Eva, I existing in the form of the self, destroy the darkness born of ignorance with the luminous lamp of knowledge. So that beginningless darkness of ignorance, that is destroyed by the divine being. That is what we seek, and that is the purpose of yoga. Whether we seek it through knowledge, whether we seek it through devotion, whether we seek it through purification and concentration of the mind in yoga, or whether we seek it through selfless service. What we're seeking to do is to remove the obstacles to the divine light shining within us. And when that happens, it doesn't take time. It doesn't take effort. All of our effort is just to get to the point where we are ourselves able of receiving, capable of receiving that divine light. As I've said on other occasions, we think that we want the divine, but if the divine were suddenly to appear in front of us right now, we'd say, wait, not yet. Come back tomorrow. Or after I take care of the things I've got to take care of, I'm not ready yet. So when we get to the point where we really want God and we want nothing else, then that light will shine forth and the darkness is removed in a moment. So someone asked the question, I think it was Ajay asked the question on Sunday about the Zen Buddhist idea of instantaneous illumination, or the other schools of Buddhism which say it's a long process. And so the Swami Tattvamayana rightly said that in Vedanta we have both. That the process of sadhana is a long drawn-out process which takes time, but illumination itself is instantaneous. And so if, like Ramakrishna, or in examples like in Zen Buddhism, the sixth patriarch, Huineng, an illiterate, very poor boy, gathering wood in the marketplace. He didn't know how to read or write, but gathering wood in the marketplace, he heard a Buddhist monk reciting one of the sutras, one of the scriptures. And just hearing that, he suddenly was illuminated. And so in Ramakrishna's life also, just a sudden illumination, because they were ready. So when we're ready, that will happen. All we have to do is to try to make ourselves ready. And so that's the process. And so Sri Krishna says that I destroy the darkness born of ignorance, that is the beginningless darkness born of ignorance, with the luminous lamp of knowledge. So we'll stop here just before Arjuna begins to speak. And for several verses, Arjuna will speak. And so we'll take that next time. So let me see if there are any questions. Yes. Just a moment while he gets the microphone up to you, ready and...
Maharaj is referring to 7.
7. Huh?
Yeah. You mentioned that even if we see God or vision of God in some state, suppose in the dream state, people have seen and all.
Yes.
What is that one?
Yes, in dream state, we can sometimes have spiritual experience. There are two classes of things that can happen in dream state as far as spiritual things go. Sometimes we may have a dream about our teacher, or we may have a dream about Ramakrishna or a deity or something. And when we wake up, we feel very happy. We feel wonderful that, oh, I had a dream of my teacher, or I had a dream of Sri Ramakrishna or Krishna or something. And that is very good, but it's not yet a vision. But sometimes we have a dream in which we have a real vision in which spiritual knowledge is transmitted. And so both are good, but an actual vision in a dream, that is very transformative. And so the difference, how do we know the difference between the two? To have a dream about anything spiritual is good, and it's a good sign. It means that we're going in the right direction, and our mind is doing the right, is getting prepared. But if it's a real vision, that is a revelation, and not just something produced by the mind, then we feel, when we wake up, we feel bathed in bliss, and we feel that, oh, I was, we feel as if we've had a real vision, a real revelation, and we don't feel the same. Not that we've suddenly become a great saint, but we just feel that, no, I've been so uplifted that I don't feel like the same person. I feel that a burden has been lifted from me. And so if we have a dream that is spiritual, but we just feel happy about it and feel glad that I had that dream, that is good. And we can even meditate on such a dream. We can use that for our meditation, and we should, because every time we remember it, the effect of it goes deeper. But if we have an actual spiritual experience in a dream, where either new knowledge is conveyed to us, new insight is conveyed to us, or we feel that something has been, that we've been washed free of something, and the mind feels elevated for maybe sometimes for days afterwards, then that also we should meditate on, so that the effect goes deeper. Both are good. It's just a question of levels. And so, as Sri Ramakrishna said, there are various types of liberation or perfection. He used the word perfection, siddhi. So there is hatat siddhi, people who are suddenly, without any preparation, suddenly illuminated. The only modern example that we know of that for sure was Ramana Maharshi, who, so without any preparation, of course the explanation is that in previous lives he had done all the preparation, and he only had a thin veil which, after a slight few experiences of karma in this life, the mind was free and he attained to perfect illumination. So hatat siddha, sudden illumination. And then he says that there's mantra siddha, those who are illuminated by a mantra, by practice of a mantra. And then there's swapna siddha, those who are illuminated by a dream. So that can either be, in rare cases, it may be that in the dream itself we attain to liberation. We wake up and we're free. But that's very rare. More likely, swapna siddha is one who, in a dream, some knowledge or maybe a mantra is conveyed to them. And then in the waking state, they go on practicing what it is that they received in the dream, and through that they are awakened. So they also are swapna siddha because they receive something in the dream which is like an empowered initiation, and they carry that forward. So, any other question? Yes, over here, Monk.
So this is in reference to, so when you said some religions have ex nihilo, but when Vedanta says it is an appearance of the unchanging reality. So when we define Brahman, we say it's beyond speech and mind.
Yes.
Do we have to say unchanging or anything? Is that not a better representation to say beyond speech and mind? Or do we have to give properties to Brahman?
No, actually, we can't give properties to Brahman. So that's why we say beyond speech and mind, because it's beyond all properties. God is the repository of infinite blessed qualities, and that's what the chapter is about. But Brahman is the reality behind even the manifestation of God, behind even God as a being whom we can relate to. And so that's why we don't pray to Brahman, because Brahman is beyond all idea of relationship. We can't, oh, I love you, Brahman, please protect me. Well, Brahman is just Brahman. There's no diversity there. But God is Brahman appearing in relationship to me. And so when I go beyond all of my sense of who I am, then I come to Brahman, because Brahman is that which is beyond mind and speech. But that is who Ishvara is. We see Brahman as Ishvara. Ishvara knows itself to be Brahman. And so, that coming back to ex nihilo creation, Vedanta says that yes, the reality doesn't change. So this universe is just an appearance of that. But the Vedanta can find an equivalence with the Christian position, though generally Christians won't accept our equivalence because they don't want it to be equivalent. But from our side, we can see what they're talking about. If you say that the universe has come out of nothing and only God exists, we come to the same point, because only God really exists. And if this universe has come out of nothing, then it's really nothing. It's just an appearance. And so we can harmonize the two positions. But Vedanta says that the reason for saying that this universe has come out of the divine being is that, as Sri Krishna says in the second chapter, around the 16th verse and forward, he says, "Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha," that which doesn't exist has no existence, and that which exists never has non-existence. And so how can you get a universe out of nothing? Even the Vedantic view that this is an appearance of the divine being, there has to be something here, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing this, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing this. So I'm seeing something. So Vedanta just says, yes, you are seeing something, and what you're seeing is reality itself. And that's why this seems so real, because I'm seeing reality. It's just that I'm not seeing it as it is. I'm seeing it through a cloud, as it were. I'm seeing it through a cloud of misunderstanding. But I'm seeing something real, and I know that this is real because I see it is real. But eventually I find that no, what was real about it was that luminous divine being, which is appearing as a book, appearing as a piece of stone. But it itself is neither a book nor a piece of stone. So we'll close here. So let me give a closing chant. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. That infinite being is full, complete. This relative universe is perfect and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite being, the fullness of this universe has come, and yet that remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace be unto